An outside threat that can destroy the world, a group of heroes uniting, a director whose true vision is finally unveiled. All of this can only mean one thing. We're comparing Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League on this episode of Retro versus Remake.
Reggie Parker.
And I'm Dan Bulick. Welcome to another episode of Retro versus Remake. This is usually the series where we compare originals and the remakes, but today we're going to change it up, right, Reggie? We're going to go for a little bit something kind of that fits what we're doing here. So we're going to compare sort of the theatrical cut versus director's cut, the simplest way to put it. So join us today as we decide if one or both these films should exist. Today's films are, of course, Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's the official name. It's not also called Justice League. It's called Zack Snyder's Justice League. Getting right into it, the original Justice League was released in 2017, starring Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, Ezra Miller, Ray Fisher, Amy Adams, Jeremy Irons, Diane Lane, Connie Nielsen, J.K. Simmons, Ciarán Hinds, Amber Heard, Joe Morton, Jesse Eisenberg, and Joe Manganiello. Directed by Zack Snyder? That's right, Zack Snyder gets a director's credit here, not Joss Whedon, but we'll get into that. Screenplay by Chris Terrio and Joss Whedon. Music by Danny Elfman. Justice League 2021, starring everybody I just said before, plus Willem Dafoe, Harry Lennox, Ryan Zhang, and Jared Leto. Directed by Zack Snyder. No Joss Whedon here. Screenplay by Chris Terrio. Again, no Joss Whedon. And music by Tom Hokenborg. So there's a big difference. Danny Elfman versus this Tom Hokenborg. All right. Reggie, what is your first experience with either film?
Okay. I remember seeing Justice League in theaters. At that point, the Marvel supremacy of these movies was apparent, right? Like, they just, every time they went to bat, they knocked it out of the park, and DC had stutters here and there. So I remember watching, was it Dawn of Justice, the Batman Superman movie, which was like serviceable. I was like, okay, this wasn't the worst thing I've seen. We'll see what they do with a Justice League movie. And unfortunately, just like because of all the heat Marvel had, I watched this film in theaters and I was like, who is this for? You know, like I watched the movie and I was like, I don't know who this is for, because like I didn't feel like there was enough fan stuff for an old fogey like me. It didn't seem like it was like fun enough for like a young person. So I was just like, oh boy, they're in trouble. So I remember paying American money to watch the movie and being deeply concerned with the future of the DC extended universe, as I believe it's called.
Yeah, or what it was called.
Mm-hmm. And then the Snyder Cut, I mean, it just came out. It's been internet buzz. I say, hey, you know what? I got to see the director's original vision. That's debatable whether this is truly the original vision, because there's no way a studio gives you 4 hours. But you know, it's closer.
Yeah, I did see Justice League in theaters like you. Actually, there was like these cardboard cutouts in the movie theater, and keeping in tradition with our King Kong episode where you post a picture, I'll post a picture of me at the movie theater standing next to these cardboard cutouts, hitting on the cardboard Gal Gadot, as I maturely did. I'm in kind of the same boat. Like DC was kind of in a downward spiral after Batman v Superman, and then Suicide Squad. And then this came out. My expectations were so low for this, and I thought it was okay. It definitely felt muddy, and you could definitely feel like, okay, there was definitely two people working on this. This is not one solid vision. Right. And like, yeah, I remember when all the buzz was coming about, like the Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut, and then it's like, it's actually happening. It's actually coming to HBO. And it's like, holy shit, the internet did something. So yeah, I watched that recently, and then suggested, hey, let's do this for the next episode instead.
Yeah. I think just the gravity of the internet sort of forcing, major studio to like re-release something is like, it's basically unheard of, especially like modern movie making. So
yeah,
like I think we just had to discuss this because how could you not?
Yeah. Maybe we should just get into like a little bit of how we got these two different versions and
Mhm.
like what's going on here. Keep bringing up Joss Whedon. So Zack Snyder was filming the original Justice League around maybe 2016, we'll say, and he got about 90% of the movie done. And then the studio was like, well, let's check it out. They saw what he had, like, you know, this 4 hour thing going on, and they was like,
Yeah.
they were like, no, 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 no,
Right.
let's do something here. So they brought in Joss Whedon, most likely because of the success he had with the Avengers movies.
Sure.
So it's like if you're gonna have somebody for a team coming together kind of a thing, but the Avengers are successful, surely he can make the Justice League successful too. And well, we all know what happened there. Pretty much, Zach he worked on it for like, he had a family tragedy happen, and then he still worked on the movie for a couple more months. But then I ultimately just decided to kind of drop out because he kept seeing like Joss just getting like more and more involved, especially in the post-production
Right.
process. So a lot of reshoots happened. There was the whole Henry Cavill coming to come back and the whole mustache thing, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
So ultimately, they wanted a lighter tone because like Zack Snyder's got just very dark tone that he set
Right.
up, and initially with Batman v Superman that carried over, and they
Which,
wanted those jokes, which we got a lot of
yeah, we
jokes.
got the jokes. Which, look, it makes sense. Like you're looking at Marvel, and I think we may have discussed this in the past, if not on the podcast privately. You look at Marvel, who's been able to take something like Guardians of the Galaxy. We're talking about obscure
Mhm.
comics that like the fans of the fans kind of know what it is, but these new audiences who are just like in the superhero movie audience will take that franchise and like they made that fun, they made that accessible. So it's like Rocket Raccoon shouldn't be a like $1 million franchise character, but he is, right?
Yeah.
And it's like DC has these like icons, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman. These are the types of characters where if someone puts movie money behind it, you're expecting a blockbuster every single time.
Mhm.
And I just think that, like you mentioned, the tone. Snyder definitely had a darker tone, but like at the time, at least, I think the studios were like, "Well, what is going on?" Because you saw this sort of lighter Marvel tone
Mhm.
take off, going even beyond where this movie started. I remember when Marvel first came out with Iron Man, and then I saw some article that had like the 10-year plan. I was like, who's gonna pay attention to this for 10 years? Me, the entire
The
country.
entire world.
And DC just always felt like it was on his back foot. And I think they even slightly, not even slightly, they made it worse with this scenario kind of pitting these two directors against each other.
Mhm.
And in a weird roundabout internet way, the Snyder light, which had dimmed a bit, is much brighter today than the Whedon light because of some controversies that apparently may have followed him throughout his career. We're not going to get too deep into that, but if you want to, Josh Whedon, who's known to be kind of a sort of like feminist icon when it comes
Yeah.
to the characters he chose,
Yeah.
may not have been such a feminist off screen. And we'll leave it at that.
Just keeping it within house here, just like actors on the set reporting just this terrible behavior that Joss Whedon is, you know, exhibiting the whole time, especially specifically like Ray Fisher, the actor who plays Cyborg,
Right.
and then even like there were some issues with Gal Gadot, and then
Yes.
like Gal had to like go above him to like, I don't know,
Right.
somebody in charge, and then somebody spoke to Joss like you can't do anything like that to Gal Gadot again. So
Right.
it's
Right.
it got really out of hand on set for this.
I mean, as much as I'm a huge DC fan, this universe is like stitched together with Wonder Woman and Aquaman at this point, which
Yeah.
is a scary thought if you're running that the DC studios. But yeah, you can't mess with Gal Gadot. She's had the most successful DC movies in recent memory. So yeah, hands off, no touching.
So we do have two pretty similar films, even though one is twice as long. I'm talking 4 hours versus 2 hours here. The synopsis is pretty much the same. It's a very basic story when you kind of break it down. So let's go into that before we do our comparison. Superman is dead. Not only that, his death has awoken the Mother Boxes. 3 boxes, when united, that have the power to destroy worlds. Steppenwolf, a minion of Darkseid, has taken it upon himself to find the mother boxes on Earth. He's able to find one in Themyscira and one in Atlantis. Meanwhile, Batman and Wonder Woman have been recruiting metahumans, the Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman. Steppenwolf doesn't know where the third box is, but Cyborg does. He was made from the box and knows all its secrets. It can even bring people back from the dead. The Justice League then decides to bring back their fallen comrade, Superman. The plan works, but Superman isn't quite himself, and he fights the team instead. Superman then sees Lois and returns to his senses. While this is happening, Steppenwolf gets the third box. Unity is imminent. The team then attempts to stop him once and for all. Things seem bleak, but then Superman finally shows up, and they are able to defeat Steppenwolf. The world is safe, and each movies end their own respective ways. Like I said, pretty basic story when you kind of get down to the actual plot that's happening, especially when you break up the Snyder cut, because there's a lot of just kind of action and pretty visuals happening. Anyways, when we talk about the differences, I think one of the main differences that I just want to talk about, because it's the first thing you see, it's just a noticeably visual difference, is just the aspect ratios of the films, right? The original cut, or the Whedon cut. It was so from here on out, I'm just going to say the Whedon cut, the Snyder cut.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, so the Whedon cut just, shot in the traditional widescreen format, every movie shot like that. And then you come to the Snyder cut, and it's now in this 4:3 aspect ratio, which is, it's noticeable because if you're not used to black bars on the sides of your screens, you're going to notice that, hey, this doesn't look quite right. This looks like my old TV and stuff. Yeah. So it was just shot like that. That's just how Zach shot it. It's like the IMAX format. He didn't shoot it using IMAX cameras because IMAX cameras don't shoot for sound. And they're really expensive and hard to move, but he shot it so it would have that IMAX look the whole way through. And for some reason too, when he shot it, it was all in black and white. I don't exactly. Oh. Yeah, that's just a weird thing that happened. I don't know. Boy. Yeah, so it was that doesn't really affect anything because the movie's not in black and white, but that's just an interesting fact.
These damn artists.
Yeah, so we have this 4:3 aspect ratio, and it's noticeable at first, but I guess after a while, you just, especially, into the third hour, you probably won't notice that. So I just wanted to bring that up because it is a notable difference. I don't know, did you have anything to say about it? Did it bother you at all, or?
No, I saw some of the internet rumblings of the aspect, but honestly, like, once it was on my TV, like, my eyes were looking at the action on the screen, like, the bars, like you mentioned, especially after a couple hours, they're not there. Doesn't bother me. Honestly, the aspect ratio on The Simpsons, when they brought that back on Disney Plus, bothers me more because you actually miss things.
Yeah, they are cut. Things are cut out. Yeah.
Yeah. At least in this, like, you can see everything you were supposed to. And, and I used to have a TV with a knob on it and probably 12 channels, so this was fine.
Oh yeah, the knob on it, and then you had the the aluminum foil around the rabbit ears because
I used to watch a lot of Batman on that TV. A lot of Adam West.
Nice. All right, now this is where I'm not exactly sure where to go next. We could do characters.
If I had to say on this one, it may be a good idea to talk about how the two movies start, because I think it does affect how we're supposed to interact with these characters going forward.
All right, fair enough. All right, so the theatrical version, or the Whedon cut, starts off with a little cell phone footage. Just kind of randomly, Superman's there talking to cops after he's probably saved somebody, and then these two kids just interviewing Superman, just random questions, and I don't know.
Unseen children.
Unseen children, yeah, just all in one shot, just like typical cell phone footage, and then they just ask him a couple questions. He kind of takes off. Cut to pretty much Superman's funeral and a Leonard Cohen cover.
Yeah. I mean, you get what kind of becomes a bit of a recurring theme where, like, the symbolism they really try to mine it. Like, Superman looks at the S on his chest and he's like, it's like a winding river, pathways. You can go. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, you could say it is, but it's not. But you're right. Like, you get the funeral, Leonard Cohen, and movie stars, versus the Snyder cut, where you have basically the end of Dawn of Justice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this Batman Superman kind of fight, death of Superman, and as Superman is dying, he kind of screams out, makes some noise, and it basically lets the mother boxes know, oh shit, Superman's dead. Coast is clear, boys. But like tonally, though one does have like the funeral, tonally, like you do get this grittier, dark, sort of continuation of the vision from the previous films. Like they are supposed to tie together, and though you can argue whether or not they should have made such gritty, dark films, the point is you did. So, so I thought that it was more appropriate the way they did it. That Whedon cut feels a little bit kind of like what they do with the movie Shazam, which isn't bad, but like doesn't fit. It's not
right. Your tone, it's all off.
Yeah.
Talk to
The
me
way
like
you're
that.
talking to me,
I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron.
like a reshoot. No, it's like this is one of those obvious reshoots, right? You're just like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, not to harp on it for too long, but like literally, this is where you start to see that divide of the original versus the, I guess the theatrical cut versus what was sort of originally intended. And I think for me, I thought the Snyder cut just totally made more sense. It did bring me back into that film I watched recently enough, right? At the time, like I saw Dawn of Justice in theaters as well and was concerned then. But I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's what happened at the end of that movie. And now we're picking up right from that moment. It felt like continuity.
Right. Yeah, continuity is important. The tone, like I said, you will definitely keep coming back to that because, yeah, it just continues that tone from Batman v Superman, and it's a tone that is going to continue throughout the whole 4 hours.
Yep.
It's a consistent tone. It's much more consistent than definitely what we got with the Whedon cut. So, you know, you could appreciate that, the setup of everything. And it lets you know two things right off the bat. Superman's dead, A.
Yep.
And B, that there's these weird boxes, something's happening to them, and they might be important to the story. Well, they are going to be important to the story, but, you know, it introduces the mother boxes, and I don't think we get the mother boxes in the original cut. I think it just focuses on Superman's death.
Yeah, Superman's death, and from there, there's a focus on sort of the parademons. So it's like we get these events without some context. And like, yes, it's a longer movie, and for some people that probably rubs them the wrong way, but like I understand what's going on. Because the context is there throughout the film. The mother boxes are pretty adequately explained in the Snyder cut in a way that like they do eventually get around to getting to what a mother box is, but this sort of late explanation of the mother box to me wasn't as, I don't know, cohesive as it's right there, right? Like Superman's dead, and here is the threat. The threat's more obvious and more scaled early on in the film.
And it just makes that connection of Superman and the mother boxes, it brings that to the forefront. So it's really important. It's even more important that we bring him back in this version because, well, they were sleeping and then they realized he's dead. So now they're awake. And, well, if we bring him back, I think we could fix everything. So it's just so much more important to bring him back.
Right. And, you know, we haven't talked about the characters yet, but like it's plausible in the Whedon version that this issue could potentially resolve itself about Superman until it becomes obvious that like, nah, it's not going to work. Versus this cut where it's, you know, because Superman is tied to these mother boxes in that way, we're trying to make it work, but you know, there's always that open question of like, hey, if there's no Superman, how is this going to work? And again, I think that though it's a longer movie, some of these questions are hit immediately. Like they happen very early in the film, and I don't know. I think that the framing is just cleaner, if you're asking me. And yeah, like I said, you can argue about how long it is, but I understood what I was watching, and there were a lot of tie-ins to things that I had known of from comic books. So I was like, all right, it's a mother box. That makes sense. What's happening? And from here, we start to assemble the team. And in the Whedon cut, the mother boxes come into play later in the film, and I think that by the time they come into play, we're so far along this journey. It's like, all right, you know, it's more like a okay versus like this is what the problem is.
Mm-hmm. Where should we go from here?
These characters.
These characters. Which character should we start with? I mean, we kind of start with Batman as the main member of the Justice League. So we'll get into that. And you had already mentioned about this in the Whedon cut. So Batman's introduction is very different in the Whedon cut because it's, like you said, there's a robbery, random guy robbing whatever. Batman is there, but he's not there necessarily to stop the robbery. He needs his fear.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a whole plot line that is not in the Snyder cut. It's that these parademons smell fear and they want to eat on fear. Okay, sure. Okay, that's the thing. And Batman needs to get this criminal. He needs his fear in order to capture the parademon. He's trying to capture parademons for a while. It doesn't work. There's a fight. Ultimately, the parademon dies. And for some reason, when these parademons die, they leave like a picture of like the mother boxes every time they die.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's a weird thing to leave behind when you die. That's there. So that's sort of our introduction to the mother boxes in the Whedon cut. It's because a dead parademon's body left a picture of it against the wall. It's very sloppy.
You're being very generous. Batman goes fishing with a guy. He uses a guy as a fishing lure to catch a bug demon. And when he does catch the bug demon's like, fuck that, blows up. And like you mentioned, the mother boxes. And, you know, Batman, I'm the world's greatest detective. I got to figure this out.
But apparently they've been doing this for a while because he's talking to Alfred about it. He's like, just like the other ones, Master Wayne. And he's like, yes, you're right, Alfred. And that's where we are in this movie, getting parademons for some reason. I don't know. It's not even fully explained why he's necessarily going after these parademons.
Yeah, or, you know, like, I guess it makes sense that they start appearing, but like, I don't know, parademons unattached from the source is less compelling than like more of what we get in the remake, which is that like you see kind of the bad guy you got, and then you know it's almost like Doom, like the video game. Like now the portal from hell's open. Here come the fucking
yeah, it's very much like Doom.
Yeah.
Doom and Lord of the Rings, kind of.
Yeah. There's a lot of cross cutting. When we're introduced to Batman in the Snyder cut,
I'm pretty sure we're not introduced to Batman right away. It's Bruce Wayne, and he's on the hunt, or he's looking for Aquaman. Yeah. That's where we're introduced to him. So it's not Batman, it's Bruce Wayne. He's looking for Aquaman. Pretty much similar scenes to how it was done in both movies. The only difference is in the Snyder cut, I think he already knows, like, oh, this is Arthur Curry. Like, you are the Aquaman. I need your help. And then in the Whedon verse again, or Whedon cut. They added this picture on the wall. There's a picture on the wall. You got Aquaman there, and again the mother boxes. They're just kind of these paintings of mother boxes. They're everywhere. Right. You can't get away from them in the Whedon cut. So that's like the only really notable difference.
I like the again the pacing, right? Like Superman is dead, right? Like that's all we need to know, and then Batman, because of this circumstance, and partially his fault, he's like, well, I better clean up my mess. And, you know, like, the Aquaman intro, I think, is still strong. You lose a lot of it in translation in the Whedon cut. But in the Snyderverse, I just really do like their initial sort of interaction. To your point, it's more consistent for the Batman, the character himself, to know who Adam Curry is, to know who the Aquaman is, and to be just kind of like, hey, I'm not going to let you know what I know, but I know something's going on here. There's a guy that's been doing some water-based theatrics around here, and I'm looking for him. And I don't know, like the way that they shoot it in this Snyder cut, it feels like the village is like protecting the Aquaman and his identity in a way that we don't get in that Whedon cut. And it does feel like, although Aquaman in this series is pretty brash and like egotistical and stuff like that, I think that he has enough compelling characteristics and enough heroics that translated to me. That like, this guy's protecting his village, they appreciate it, and he's not completely a narcissist. He may be shirking certain responsibilities, but he hasn't completely stop being a hero. And I thought that translated a lot cleaner in the Snyder Cut. And for me, framed Arthur Curry's journey in a way that I felt was more appropriate and helped us get to the point where like we could get behind Aquaman, potentially an Aquaman movie.
Yeah, there's that extra scene in the Snyder Cut where when he goes into the water, the villagers start singing the song, almost like he's a deity or some type of god or protector.
Like a
They
Kong.
like a Kong. There you go. Yeah, so it just emphasizes just how important he is to these people and just how highly they regard him in general, and just how he helps them and is able to, like he says, bring them food and do whatever he needs to do.
And look, like Jason Momoa has played this character well in pretty much that's it. The Aquaman movie was basically almost beat for beat like a Black Panther movie that came out. But it worked, right? Like this idea of like someone who's expected to be royalty in the sea, like the King of Atlantis, who because of circumstance with his mother has said, screw that world, like I don't want to be a part of this, who's constantly running away from ultimately what is his responsibility to bear alone. Both movies capture that, but I feel like in the Whedon cut, it's more like, nah, don't wanna, I'm out. Like that character trait, which he has in both films. And honestly, all the Aquaman films that there have been with Momoa so far. But it just feels more juvenile and in the Whedon cut because we don't really spend a lot of time with him. Like you mentioned, we don't get the singing and the date. Like he's been doing stuff. Just because you don't see him doesn't mean he's just like a drunk, right? And I don't know. Like I do appreciate where Snyder took that character. I thought those scenes really hit a lot harder and I don't know, like beautifully shot. I really like the way that they shot that kind of interaction. And we save Batman from being kind of a dummy. It's like he knows why he's there. He knows who he's there for. So why are we pretending like he doesn't? So I mean, like that again. It's surface level. Like it's the same guy, right? So like you're not really going to say, oh, the acting is different. But we just spend more time with Arthur Curry. I guess from here.
All right, maybe we could just do each character's introduction. We already
Okay.
talked about Batman. We already talked about a little bit about Arthur Curry. Yeah, so we can go into Gal Gadot's introduction here, which is slightly different.
What I'm remembering from the Whedon cut, we basically just go right into like this sort of like inciting action with Gal Gadot. You get the similar scene in both films.
Yeah.
Where this group of like terrorists have taken over a building, like I think it's like some kind of art gallery or something like that. And there's some kids that are on a school trip that are stuck in this crossfire, and then Wonder Woman swoops in, lassos some guys, figures out that they're basically just trying to blow up the building, and she does her thing to like stop these
I
terrorists.
think they're pretty much the same scenes. Obviously, the Snyder Cut takes a little more time, but the main difference that I can really think of with the introductions is the action like pretty much stops as soon as like Wonder Woman like does her thing, and then like it cuts to the next scene. But the Snyder Cut keeps going, and then Wonder Woman actually goes over to the kids to make sure they're okay. This one little girl is like just kind of sitting there. She's like, "You okay?" She's like, "I want to be like you when I grow up." And she's like, "Oh, you can." So just that's like one little difference. And I'm thinking if this is a superhero movie, maybe kids look up to these people. Wouldn't it be great for them to interact with some kids?
Yeah, and we even get more of the action, like the taking of the explosive and sort of removing it from the situation. We get more.
She flies in the Snyder Cut to throw it out, but I think she just throws it up in the Whedon Cut. So this Wonder Woman can definitely fly in the Snyder Cut.
Flight is important, I think, for Wonder Woman. It's a defining characteristic,
It's true to also like the continuity, because if I know obviously Wonder Woman 84 would have came out after, and that's the movie where she learns how to fly.
Correct.
And then so you think by now, which 2021 or whatever in the late 2000s this is, she's able to fly by now. So
right. That additional action, and again, a lot of the Snyder slow-mo action sequences, but like honestly, it's clean, legible action, right? Like the way that she interacts with the guys, the way she's blocking the bullets. And yes, both films have it, but just adding that extra little layer of more of like the fact that these terrorists really don't want anything. They don't really have any demands other than like chaos, and like the lengths that they're willing to go to inflict that chaos is more apparent in the Snyder Cut. Like you said, being able to then follow up in action sequence, which we all can appreciate, but because it's a superhero movie, you gotta imagine there's kids. Her interacting with the kids is an important element, I think. And a lot of times the Whedon cut tries to, give us quips in place of moments like this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that like the Snyder moment of, hey, you can be whatever you want, little girl, like it's kind of important, kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned that Wonder Woman is one of the glue, like holding this universe together. So let's give Wonder Woman that moment with people that look up to her, So it's a nice addition there.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, like something like Flight, right? It starts to put her up in that tier, that A-tier superhero type deal. Like, yeah, she may not necessarily be able to beat Superman, but let's all take a step back and realize that she's like top 3 in the Justice League, easily. We just get more time with her, and it's important because Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, like I know you just mentioned it, but like super important. I mean, when this series looked like it was getting completely out of hand, Wonder Woman was like that first shot to like right the ship. They're like, okay, we may not have completely got that third act, but like Gal Gadot she's a star. She's likable. Like so much likable that she could go to the studio and be like, Joss Whedon's a dick. And they're like, hey, Josh, excuse me. It's like, you don't even have a director's credit for this shit. I don't know. Just more time with Diana Prince is never a bad thing in the DC extended universe.
No, certainly not. Maybe just go on to another character's introduction, because another very different introductions to characters. Let's go to Flash. Yeah. Really quickly, pun intended. So in the Whedon cut, we're introduced to Flash. He's at prison visiting his dad, and in the true, Whedon flavor, he has to throw in a joke. So like he's signing in to like, just visit his dad in prison, and then the guy behind him is giving him a little flack for being slow. Get it? Flash is slow. This is a joke that also happens in the Snyder cut too. That's all these Flash being slow and late jokes that are just whatever. Anyway, so the guy behind him is being a bit of a dick, and then Flash just looks at him, and just like a quick split second, you see his arm like go up and then go down, and then the guy's got doodles on his face, and it's this. It happens pretty early in the movie, and again, we're gonna keep saying this: the tone is all wrong. It's like, what are we doing here? Why are we throwing these dumb jokes in here?
Like it doesn't make sense, right? Like we're not introduced to him. We don't know anything about him.
Yeah.
We know his dad's in prison at this point, and really maybe not even at this point because he's still signing in. All right, as a civilian, the Flash took a Sharpie to some guy's face, and then we get an extra line. It was like, "You got a prescription for those?" To a guy that doesn't know that he had something on his face.
Yeah,
that's funny. Like what? Come on.
Yeah, that definitely didn't land for me, and there's a bunch of these sort of small jokes for these heroes that just really don't land. And again, just that Joss Whedon tone. And that's maybe why you hired Joss Whedon, because he is good at that. He puts that in all his stuff. But what was set up by Zack Snyder doesn't really allow for those types of jokes, especially early on when we don't even know these characters. It just doesn't work.
And I'm gonna say this, that like the intro that we get in the Snyder cut is just so much better because like one of the defining characteristics of this film are some of the really, really intricate and cool shots that they pull off when they're in like that Flash, like I forget the speed
force time thing.
Speed force. And you get this intro where like he's looking for jobs, and like it's a problem in both films. Like his dad's like, you gotta get a real job. And you see him basically like applying to be a dog walker, which is funny too, because like he's the Flash, right? And you see this girl that he's kind of like obviously attracted to, who finds herself into like danger while he's applying for this dog catcher job.
You can be whatever you want to be. I can't sit here and watch you run in place.
Go after him faster than you've ever attempted.
it's an awesome scene, dude. Like there's a truck barreling towards this girl, like the guy dropped like a burger or something. He's like,
A burger? And he's like, I gotta eat that 5-second rule, dude. It's like, gross, dude. This is by your dirty feet. I mean, come let it go.
And it's like he's not looking at the road, and this woman is about to get just destroyed by this truck, and like boom, speed burst, right? Everything slows down, and you see him like running around, and like the girl's upside down. Yeah, they do the boop a bit, but it's just real. It's a really, really good shot, and establishes this Flash character in a way that's both comedic and heroic. And again, I think that's the tone that Snyder's actually able to pull off, which is, yeah, they're dark films, and no, they may not be doing puns and stuff like that, but there is comedy in the film, and it's inexplicable why this woman's life is saved to any outside observer, and to cover his tracks, the Flash is like playing with a bunch of the dogs. It's like, oh, isn't this cute? Like he just saved her life, and it's good that they established this shot in this scene, because when we go back to this type of shot throughout the film, which is a huge hinge point for the action throughout the movie. Us as an audience being able to perceive the heroics going on in a way that's like not cheesy, and that actually separates you from the Marvel universe. I love this intro. I think it's a great intro for the Flash. I think we get a lot of the we get Ezra Miller, who's actually very good at playing his character. Being able to do physical comedy, being able to do spoken comedy, being a superhero in an origin sense, it just works really well, and I love the shot.
No, it is a great introduction, a much better introduction. It does have that humor again that I'm like, oh, I'm sorry I'm running late. Again, Flash running late jokes, shit. You didn't just give me the comedy, which is why I'm able to forgive the scene, because you did give us the heroics that you had mentioned. And that's important because that's sort of Flash's thing throughout the whole movie. A little bit of humor, but ultimately you're going to get the heroics too. Yeah. So it establishes those immediately. And if you're not familiar with Flash somehow, it definitely lets you know, like, oh, this is what this kid can do. Not like, oh, he's just really fast and he can doodle on people. Like, no, he has this power, and not only does he have it, but he uses it like for good. Like he's saving people when he uses his powers. So he's a hero right there. And then, cool effects like his shoes can't handle like how fast he's going. There's small little details. There's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I love that, like how he got through the glass door. He just like kind of touches it, and it's just like water just like rippled and then shattered. Some really cool effects there. And we had seen moving in super fast where everything slowed down before in the X-Men movies with Quicksilver. So it's not necessarily like incredibly innovative, but it's still interesting to see how they did it in this one. And the way they use it later in the movie is what really makes it interesting. So like it's interesting because they start somewhere and you think, well, this is pretty much what it's going to be the whole time, but they're able to take it to another level towards the end of the film. So it's a really good introduction for the character when you think about it.
It's a good introduction, and honestly, for like as a surrogate for people that aren't as familiar with the universe, this version of the Flash is very early on in his career, which you can say about Cyborg as well, but like he's very obviously the rookie of the Justice League in this scenario, right? And we're able to kind of go on this journey with him. It's almost like they make him too much of a novice in the Whedon cut, it's just like there's a point where he has to save people. It's like, just save one person. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Like the guy knows what he's doing. Like we don't have to make him, a child with doodles and not knowing what to do, but we can make him like, green. Like he doesn't know exactly what to do all the time. He's not necessarily a planner, but like even that inexperience comes into play later, because when there's a scene where the plan is stick together, everyone immediately starts doing their own thing because of their super ego. And the Flash is the one that's like, this isn't the plan. I don't know, like Ezra Miller does a phenomenal job in this movie, and it's a shame that we don't really get to see that in the Whedon cut.
No. I also do want to just mention too that he is saving Iris West, who eventually becomes his wife. So, nice little cameo there we get.
Yep. I don't know, like you said, we've seen like the Quicksilver stuff in the past, but like clearly, and this is how you know a director's being a director, clearly we're using this moment at a low, I mean, it's high stakes because someone might die, but like low stakes because it's not the entire universe, right? We get to see like, and get used to this visual, used to this type of action. And hey, we'll be back to that, right? So it's a great intro.
Mm-hmm. Which leaves us kind of with our last member, who arguably has the biggest change between the two films. So we have Cyborg. Maybe you want to start with this? I'm trying to even remember how he's introduced in the Whedon cut, because like he's so like underplayed in that version.
He's completely underplayed. I mean, he's like not even really intro, right? Like it's almost like they're kind of along in their journey. I remember Diana is kind of like looking for. I don't even really remember why. That's how bad this was. Like, I
think we're introduced to his dad first. He's just working at Star Labs.
Yes.
And then in the Whedon cut, I guess when he's leaving, this is an added line that's not in the Snyder cut. The janitor says, "Oh, sorry to hear about your boy." So you know, like, oh, something happened with his son or something. He's presumed dead, but he's not really dead because he's actually cyborg, and it's really briefly touched upon like how all this happened to him and like why he's who he is now, the cyborg in the Whedon cut.
I mean, super brief. I mean, we even miss out on in the Snyder cut. We actually get like elements of his mother in the film, because he's in the Snyder cut. They make it. I mean, it's just different, right? Like, he has a contentious relationship with his father in the Snyder cut, because his dad is not around. We're kind of introduced to him as as a football player, right? Like he's playing for Gotham College or something like that.
Yeah, GU, Gotham U, man.
Yeah, Gotham University. And like you see him doing some pretty insane, like non-superhero, but pretty fucking super football moves.
Yeah.
Like, jumping over guys. Hey,
Yo, get the pylon, get the pylon!
And it's badass. And like he looks up to the stands. There's his mother cheering him on. Yay, go son. Where's his father? Not there. Right? The mother's driving him home. He's kind of complaining about his dad not being there. Boom. Car accident.
Another driver not looking where they're going. Maybe he dropped a burger too.
Yeah, probably. It's a big problem in this universe. Again, contentious because had his father been there, they may not have necessarily been where they there. You know, like this in his mind is an avoidable event. So even with his father like taking steps to save his life, to kind of like try to tutor or help him with this newfound power that more or less his dad, Cyborg is Victor Stone. His dad is I forget his full name.
Silas.
Thank you. His dad is Silas Stone, who uses like mother box technology to save his life. And even with that sort of life-saving thing, like it's mad at him. It's like, oh, screw you, man. Like you're an asshole, right? Dad leaves him like a tape behind, like, listen to this. And you know, once the science part of it's over, he's like, as your father, oh no. I don't like you. And honestly, that part's cool. The contention between him and his father, it fleshes out those two characters in a way that we don't see in the Whedon cut, where they kind of like each other. And yeah, it's like they like each other, but they're also like you mentioned, they're not in the movie enough for that to matter. And ultimately, we'll talk about this down the line, like the father is far less important in the Whedon cut than he is in the Snyder cut.
Yeah.
Like, so there's that. And then we actually get to watch this guy kind of develop his powers and get an understanding of, wait a minute, Cyborg's not just some random metal dude.
Right.
This guy's got like legitimate powers that I'm glad they explored.
Take your place among the brave ones.
I'm not broken. And I'm not alone.
He was like, I'm tied into every single financial system in the world. I could launch nukes if I wanted to. I could like interface with basically every piece of technology on the planet and off the planet. And we still get a little bit of that heart because he takes a liking to this single mother who's working like a diner job, who's struggling and stuff like that. She's getting evicted. You're seeing it in all these little like sort of like montaging flash cuts, and ultimately like, and the visual is really nice actually. Like you see her bank account with no money in it. He's like, "Do, do, do, do." The dollars stack up, and she goes to ATM and is like, "You won the Gotham, I don't know, bank award," and now she has $300,000, right? Like that, great, awesome. So Cyborg has immense power, a contentious relationship with his father. He's a hero because of what you see with the woman, and even that's kind of questionable. It's like where do you step in to help people, and when do you step back?
Mm-hmm.
That's a question that he has all the time. He's constantly listening to technology. He's just a fleshed out, good character in this movie, versus some kid that his dad saved his life and he's got powers that we may or may get around to defining.
What we get with Cyborg in the Snyder Cut is something we don't get with any of the characters in the movie, and that's an origin story.
Yeah.
Because these are already well-established characters, but Cyborg, who is he? Yeah, who is Cyborg? Let's get to know him. Well, here he is. Well, he was this kid. He was very athletic, and even in that flashback, we also learn that he is a bit of a computer hacker. We learned that he had a friend whose house burned down and kind of hacked in to help her get higher grades. And it's like, well, he helped his friend do that. What did you do? Like after their house burned down, you didn't do anything. So he's like kind of already a good kid because he's helping out friends who are very much in need. And then there's the thing between him and his father because like he's not there, and then the accident happens, and then you just get to see this origin story. He just finally starts to like accept his powers. You see him like learning how to just use the new body. Like, now I can fly. Holy shit, that's pretty cool. I didn't know I could do that before. And then like you said, he kind of just like focuses on this one lady, and then he decides to use his powers for good, which is a hero. It's good that we know he's on the good team.
Right.
So you get this origin story, and like we do say it's like a much longer film, but it does move by pretty fast, so you can at least know who this kid is, where he's coming from, why he hates his dad, and like what he's going to do with these new powers. In a brief amount of time, they're able to give us a nice solid origin story for this character who's going to be very important for the ending.
This idea of a character that is born of the mother box, and at one point Steppenwolf, I believe in the Snyder Cut, it's like, you're an agent of chaos, and it's true. He could be this chaotic thing. Like the guy can launch nukes. He has control of anything. Like you're saying, he chose to be a good guy. He could go, cash out a bank account, play the World Series of Poker every year, and like that's it. Like I'm just killing it like that. But he chooses to be a hero, right? And he risked his life, his sanity potentially, to like make this big sacrifice towards the end of the film. And when you know who he is, and kind of like his origin, you're connected to him in a way that, like you mentioned, in a short amount of time, it worked really well. It almost felt like you had this little cyborg movie within the movie. And for a character that, look, I'm a DC nerd. I know Cyborg. I've seen him in Teen Titans. I've seen him in other things. He's not always necessarily in the Justice League lineup, right? So this is a good idea. Who is this guy?
He's not typically like the A-list Justice League members. Like you said, he's typically a Teen Titan. So to elevate him up to a member of the Justice League, it's a pretty big deal. If we're not too familiar with him, it's a pretty good idea that we do get to know him.
Yes. And honestly, even for me, who was like a guy that appreciates the DC universe, look, I'm not. I didn't read a bunch of Cyborg stuff. To me, honestly, it's the character design. I never really liked his look, and I just didn't get into it. But like after seeing something like that, I'm like, hey, maybe I should check out some big Stone comic books, figure out more about Cyborg, see what he's up to. Because like they made him a pretty damn powerful character, and when you're fighting aliens that could destroy an entire planet, you want to know you're working with a stacked team. Another just good intro that unfortunately gets cut from this movie. And, besides Whedon getting a little bit of heat for his interaction with women, Ray Fisher has made some specific charges about race that, I don't know, man. But like two of the people of color in the movie are more or less have their scenes cut with the diner woman and stuff like that. It's like, Yeah, maybe. I don't know, man. It's a weird cut, dude.
It's definitely underserviced in the Whedon cut. I mean, because like we said in the Snyder cut, he has this relationship with his father that only is made worse after his mom passed away. So he like blames his father for his mother's death, and then he also just hates his father. Like, I don't care if you saved my life, I still hate you. So you understand where like that's coming from. In the Whedon cut, we don't know. I don't even know if the mom's mentioned at all.
I didn't see her at all.
I mean, you don't see her for sure, but I don't even know if he mentions her. You know, he just hates his father. You're not exactly sure why, and then you just think maybe it's because he made him cyborg, and you don't exactly understand like how that happened. There's an explosion mentioned, but that's kind of it. So don't understand where this animosity Victor has is coming from at all in the Whedon cut. And he just seems like a grumpy kid. He's just like, well, I don't like you, Dad. You know, he just going to stay in my room and stare at the kids and out in the streets. So, you know, to flesh that out, obviously gives him a much easier arc to follow. He doesn't even have a fucking arc in the original.
Right.
I don't know.
No, he's just there at one point, right? And what could make this even muddier, and not to derail this conversation, but like I think I've even seen the Justice League Ultimate Edition, like the director's cut before the Snyder cut. So like I'm all jumbled about with these characters. It's a mess, dude. Again, like I think what we're keying in on is that yes, it's longer, and yeah, studios kind of like to churn out shorter films because you can get more tickets sold, more showings and stuff like that. But like Ezra Miller being fleshed out, great. Helps with the action throughout the film, adds a little bit of humor where ultimately these are pretty dark, gritty movies. It's good to have that character. Ray Fisher coming into play here, playing Cyborg, like getting to know him, seeing him before he's Cyborg, seeing him after he's Cyborg. It's a big deal. Like we can, again, relate to this guy who more or less should have just gone and playing like whatever the DC version of the NFL was, right? And had his like genius level mind and his like fucking super level like athletics, had that taken away from him in a moment. And his dad trying to do this like makeup call, I'm your father now thing, was like, no, that's not enough.
Yeah.
Not only is it not enough, you made me into like a Frankenstein type monster. So like I really hate you now. It leads to a very, very nice moment to do an arc that we'll get into later.
Yeah.
And you just don't get that in the Whedon cut.
Not at all. I'm sure we'll get into these characters more, but maybe let's cross over to the other side and talk about another character who's pretty important, and that is our main villain, Steppenwolf. Yes. And I guess we could kind of start with the introductions here as well. In both films, we're introduced to Steppenwolf on Themyscira, getting that first mother box. He looks very different in both films. He's kind of wearing, just plain armor, I guess, is for lack of a better term, in the Whedon cut. And then he's kind of wearing this living armor in the Snyder cut, which is shinier and it moves. And so it looks spikier, looks sharper. I don't know. Like, I didn't really think it was like that great of an improvement. Like, I don't know the character from the comics, so I don't know. I'm sure it's more true to how he looks in the comics, but I wasn't necessarily like blown away. Like, that's a Steppenwolf. Like, it looks still kind of okay.
No, they're both kind of goofy.
Okay.
The Whedon cut, I thought it was weird because he's got like it looks more like clothing versus like this living thing that you're describing. And after the rewatch, in the Snyder cut, he looks bulkier for some reason.
He does.
He's a bigger, more imposing figure, which I appreciated. Kind of going back and watching the Whedon cut, I was like, he looks kind of lame. And like you said, the design isn't that, like you mentioned, it's not that spectacular, but that kind of matters because Steppenwolf is more of a standalone villain in the Whedon cut. During the Mascara intro, we get more of like the background as to why we should care about Steppenwolf, versus like the Snyder cut where Steppenwolf's part of it, but there's some other stuff. You gotta be.
There's a lot more people involved here with Steppenwolf. So maybe we'll just get into kind of motivations here. You kind of mentioned.
Great point.
Like he's the main baddie. I guess it's hard to talk about Steppenwolf without talking about Darkseid.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna bring him up here now too. So Darkseid, who I think is only mentioned once in the Whedon cut. I think he says his name once. And then Darkseid, who is like the motivation. He's the driving force in the Snyder cut.
I have turned 100,000 worlds to dust. And when this world is scorched, all of existence shall be mine.
I don't know all the details, but they said something like he betrayed Darkseid, and now he's kind of making up to him. He's supposed to conquer like 10,000 worlds or something. So he's trying to find these mother boxes to get Unity to go home. He's not allowed to go back to Apocalypse, the planet. So, which they don't mention yet, but yeah, he needs to go home because he fucked up. So that's his driving motivation. And in the Whedon cut, it's not really explained that well.
I guess like mother boxes to kind of take over, more or less, right? Like, the Snyder cut is more built into DC lore. Like I've read plenty of comic books with Darkseid in it. In a way, like it's actually kind of impressive the way Marvel was able to take someone like Thanos, who, like, if you're a hardcore comic guy, oh, you know who Thanos is, but like his design back in the day was kind of goofy, so. It was interesting that they're able to like build a franchise around Thanos in a way that they did, versus like DC, which is like you have Darkseid, who really doesn't need a lot of introduction. You know, it's like Doomsday and Darkseid are like pretty well established villains,
right?
And then they choose to spend their time explaining Steppenwolf, who, like, I've seen Steppenwolf in some of those comics, but like he can be important, he can be a standalone villain, but like having the backdrop of like, and if Steppenwolf succeeds, now we got real problems. It sets you up, like when you're doing these multi-film franchises, to have the ability to still be able to parlay whatever happened in this movie into a Darkseid follow-up is important. And like I just felt like Steppenwolf he's not that cool, he's not that scary. He's like A tier villain in terms of power, but he's B tier in terms of us caring about him.
Right.
And you know, you could build him up in certain ways, but I don't think that they pulled that off in the Whedon cut. I think they actually did a better job in the Snyder cut. But really, he was mostly just a hype man to be like, "Yo, if you think this is rough, wait till more stuff happens." And like you mentioned, Steppenwolf, he owes Darkseid. He's basically his slave. He needs to capture all those planets. And Steppenwolf also has motivation to try to get from under Darkseid's thumb. And when he finds out about anti-life, which he finds on Earth, it's a MacGuffin that they know about, that's introduced in the Snyder cut. It's an opportunity. It's like, okay, he may use that to help Darkseid. He may use it to help himself. It adds a little bit of intrigue to what is otherwise kind of like a sidekick villain, right? I just think the scope is better, right? Like when I remember watching the original movie and it was Steppenwolf, I was like, because like they had Doomsday poorly, by the way, but they had Doomsday in Batman vs Superman. So I was like, okay, that's like A tier villain, and then you give me Steppenwolf in the Justice League movie. It's like that's a step back.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say that, like, I think that what you're mentioning, another character that gets the benefit of a good origin story by, you know, fleshing out Steppenwolf, I was able to be like, okay, I'm okay with Steppenwolf being the villain because I know that there's more danger behind it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, he's a pretty generic villain. He's like super big, super strong, and hard to take down. You don't exactly know his motivations, but you know he's evil, and you don't really get like any sense of motivation in that Whedon cut. It's just, I need to get these mother boxes together to rule the world. Okay, just another dude who wants to rule the world. At least, you know, setting up Darkseid in the Snyder cut. It's like, okay, so you're trying to impress this guy because this is like your boss, and so you want to impress your boss or something. So you're giving Steppenwolf a little bit more motivation. You're setting up Darkseid. And, you know, they did like a flashback of like when they first fought Darkseid.
It's great.
Yeah, it's a great sequence. And then for the Whedon cut, they just CGI'd Steppenwolf into that. And it's like, well, I don't know. It just doesn't work.
No. I mean, look, that sequence in the Snyder cut is beautiful. It's a crime that you don't get that full Themyscira scene because that's really well shot. Even though, it's like CGI nonsense, but like the scope of the fight
Right.
is bigger. We get more of the action in the location with the mother box before they try to seal it out. It's just kind of like, they fought and then boom, close the gates. It's like, really? Like,
Yeah. It's very much
that's
like a Lord of the Rings style kind of
it really
coming
is.
together of like the Atlanteans, the Amazonians, visitors from outer space. It's this huge epic fight that was like,
Right.
you just got a glimpse of it in the Whedon cut. And well, it's like you see it full in the Snyder cut.
Right. Like the Zeus like figure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that when someone says you've got the blood of the old gods in you, that means something.
Right. There you go.
That means something because, in a lot of ways, like the DC universe takes that Greek mythology and stuff like that and that lore and actually makes it sort of real in their universe.
Yeah.
It's like Ares, the god of war, is a real character. Poorly done in the end of Wonder Woman, but
yeah.
but you know what? For most of that movie, it was working.
It worked.
But like when you see the Atlanteans, the men, but like kind of like bolstered by these almost like Greek god type characters. When you see the Amazonians and stuff like that, that's an epic battle, and it really puts in the scope what it takes to take down this type of character. That like the only loss that Darkseid ever had was because of the collective efforts of everyone. And again, this Justice League is repeating that step of we can't win this battle without some we can't win this battle without all of us. And having that scene fleshed out like that, it's a great action sequence. I think it's shot so well. Parlaying that right into the mascara, like them constantly throwing the mother box to the next person and trying to save it. It's a really, this guy wants to be in the movie. The ace cut.
Oh, God.
I don't know, man. Like, I was so disappointed because I watched the Whedon cut again after watching the Snyder cut. When I saw what they did with that mascara scene, I was like, fuck out of here. Like, just like, punchy, close the gate. I'm like, it was so epic before that.
Wow.
You didn't have another 5 minutes for that? Like, are you kidding me? I was robbed.
Yeah, but all the action sequences are definitely a little extended in the Snyder cut for sure. One of the things I liked about the Themyscira scene is because they had to seal off that area. It was like what it meant.
There were living Amazonians in there.
Yeah, exactly. Like the queen was just like kind of out there, just like over the wreckage, just like dreading that she had to do that. But it was like, it's a kind of a necessary thing that it had to do because otherwise Steppenwolf would get these boxes and we can't have that happen. So like just have the Queen Hippolyta, just out there mourning, just a small moment like that. Like, yeah, okay, I care because I'm seeing other people care. This is good.
It's true. And then like it adds to that the shit talking later when Steppenwolf's like, and your sisters died, in vain, basically. It's like, yeah, man, I saw that. I saw the heroic efforts of like 100 Amazonians going down this like losing battle, and like you mentioned, the queen having to choose like, I gotta steal in my own people. Yeah, I gotta make that choice. It's cleaner, man. It's so much cleaner.
Yeah, you don't feel the weight of it at all in the Whedon cut.
Not even a little bit.
No,
a little bit. It's in a side in the Whedon cut, and it's like, well, he got the box. It's like, oh, okay. Even I know we're not necessarily doing this, but like, even when he gets the mother box in Atlantis, it's a much more compelling scene in the Snyderverse. But I don't know if we're at that part yet.
I mean, we could. I'm not exactly sure where to go to here because I think we touched upon like main characters who are important to the plot.
Yeah. I mean, there's some other characters here and there.
We could jump to because we're just talking about getting one mother box, so we could jump to the other mother box if you want.
Sure. So going back to Aquaman for a moment,
Aquaman.
Right? So we've got the Themyscira scene. Diana, who's been banished from her homeland, Amazon, I believe, for bringing a man back
I didn't know she was banished. I didn't get that. Was she banished? I thought she just had left to fight in the world of man and just decided not to go back home. I'm not.
All right, well, I'll cut that. There's so many Wonder Woman origin stories. That's right. Sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes. So we go from Wonder Woman's sort of homeland, the Mysteria, Amazonia, and stuff like that. And like you mentioned before, in that scene where everyone kind of teamed up together, we got a glimpse of what lengths they would go to protect the mother box. We get a similar sequence in Atlantis.
Mm-hmm. Well, before that, we do get a character that wasn't in the Whedon cut, and that's Willem Dafoe comes in as Vulko, and we just got a brief scene of him just confronting Aquaman, just being like,
"You need to take your mother's place. You tried it over there. Take it."
That's Willem Dafoe.
He's so good. This is a quick Willem Dafoe. He's so good in everything aquatic that I've seen him in.
Life Aquatic, Steve's.
Yeah, the Life Aquatic, the Lighthouse, which stars him in future Batman, Robert Pattinson.
Oh yeah, there you go.
He was also in a Van Gogh movie that Pre was watching the other day. I was like, God damn, he can do anything. But yeah, Vulko gets fleshed out more in the Aquaman film, but it's good to see him in the Snyder cut, and to see that going back and forth with Arthur Curry. So you get it once kind of in the Whedon cut when Amber Heard's character talks to Aquaman about like his responsibility and what his mother did as a sacrifice. But hey man, you can't hate on one extra scene of being like, hey dude, come back, you just tried it, you got a job to do. Especially with them knowing that they have a mother box. Like what makes Amazonia and Atlantis different than the world of man is they remember the power of the mother boxes. They remember how dangerous these things are, and they're actively protecting them. So like in Atlantis, there is, armed guards. They've got a whole like room set up. Like no one's supposed to touch his mother box. So like when Steppenwolf comes about, just like in the Mascara, when he's kicking everybody's ass, it's a big problem. And it's like their best efforts to stop it. If we want to go into that, because although it is more fleshed out, it's the scene more or less tracks the same, I think, between cuts.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. A little more of the action's extended. There's this kind of cool scene with Amber Heard's Mira where like she's like sucking the liquid out of Steppenwolf's face, and you see the blood start to like get pulled out too. So that was like, oh, that's a little that wasn't in the Whedon cut, so that was a little cool to see that. But ultimately, the fight's pretty much the same, and Steppenwolf is able to get that second mother box. But I think the important thing was like just the inclusion of the Vulko character, and then like just setting up the trident and the armor, because the armor's in that scene too. I don't think you see that in the original, just Mira.
I don't think so at all. And like I mentioned in like the Aquaman movies and stuff like that, like this is a recurring theme. It's like it's almost like prodigal son, this king living outside of his kingdom, and the fact that no matter how powerful they are, because like you mentioned, the Amber Heard scene, that's kind of cool, man. Kind of reminds me of like little Avatar, little blood bending, right? Like,
yeah, blood bending, yes.
The dark arts. So it's like, look, once again, it elevates Aquaman's power because, Aquaman did need a bit of a rehab after his whole orange, old school Justice League cartoon stint. They tried to revamp him a couple times. Okay, she's pretty tough there, and she almost found a way to like get Steppenwolf out of there, but it wasn't quite enough. So it boosts Aquaman when he's able to fight this guy. It's like pro wrestling, putting another character over the top. Ultimately, like you mentioned, the action sequence is it's the same thing, but adding more lore, more background, understanding why Aquaman needs to come back and rule his people, because without them, they are vulnerable to these type of threats continuously. You can make an argument, would this have happened if he was there the whole time? Maybe not, right? So it's a good scene. Like Vulko's brief, hey, come back and do your job, is huge. It's a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you, like you said, it does give you more backstory. You know that he's like the heir apparent. You know that they do mention his brother too. So his brother Orm, the
Right.
Ocean Master. It gets
Yes,
a little,
the
gets a
Ocean
little,
Master.
little bit of a nod there. So you know that if you're not familiar with the Aquaman lore, you do know that this Arthur Curry is pretty important to the Atlanteans.
Yes.
So just a brief interaction with Falco, just gives us a little bit more of a background of this
This is
fish
the type
guy.
of, this is the type
Talk
of
to
stuff.
fish? Fucking A.
Fish. A lot of fish jokes in how we can cut.
Yeah.
Going back to kind of like zooming out of like these universes in general. When I mentioned like for Marvel, the Guardians of the Galaxy, I didn't know who Rocky Raccoon was, but you built the character out. You gave me some background. Gave me a prism scene. I know who that guy is now. I swear to God, if Marvel was like, I'm gonna make a Namor movie, they'll probably do bigger numbers than Aquaman. And it's like, guys, you're sitting on gold. Flesh them out, right? And I think the Snyder Cut, though it's indulgent in its runtime, fleshes out these characters in a way where the Marvel plan was always, we're going to start with the individual character, and they pick Iron Man, and we're going to do individual movies and then bring them together. The DC plan was, because they started after Marvel, they were like, we'll bring our big stuff together and then branch out afterwards. Clearly, so far, Marvel has been winning that battle. But look, this is an accomplishment. I mean, the fact that the Snyderverse even came out is actually weirdly an accomplishment. They might be able to work from here. So I hope that they keep fleshing these characters out, because clearly the parts that we like about this movie are when they do. So just wanted to say that about the second Mother Box. Though Aquaman fought as best as he could, Amber Heard did too. Steppenwolf just like, give me that box, and he disappeared in his little light portal that he gets away in.
Should we just go on to the third Mother Box? Because it's pretty different. The third
Really
one.
different.
All right. So in both versions, Victor does have the Mother Boxes. And once the team is assembled, they decide to bring back Superman, pretty much, because the third Mother Box hasn't awakened. At least we get this in the Snyder Cut. He's like, the third Mother Box hasn't awakened, but if we try to bring him back, it will awaken, and Steppenwolf will know. I don't know so much that was explained in the Whedon cut, but ultimately they both decide that they're going to bring back Superman. A little bit of a difference is in the Whedon cut, Wonder Woman is pretty against it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have any problem with it at all in the Snyder cut. So there's just a little bit of a conflict there that wasn't there before.
I think there's a little bit more foreshadowing of like what we're gonna get, because like they mentioned kind of Frankenstein type deal. Like if when you die, you lose a part of your soul. I think that's a little bit more kind of telegraphed in the Whedon cut, which I think kind of makes sense. I know we've been dunking on the Whedon cut a little bit, but that makes a little bit of sense. And to have a little bit of conflict there is okay, especially with the shortened runtime. I think that because of what we've seen, the amount that we've seen in the Snyder cut, I get why no one's got any objection. It's like, this is not going great. There's a bigger threat, like we mentioned before, in the background with Darkseid. It doesn't just stop at Steppenwolf. So let's say we're able to pull off the Steppenwolf win. Without Superman, we're kind of screwed. And it's acknowledged that the reason that these things are even awake again is because Superman's gone.
Right.
So kind of need him.
Yeah.
But that is a major difference.
Yeah, I don't hate the conflict either, because if you think about it, if we're going back to Batman v Superman, Diana saw we had to fight Doomsday, somebody that got brought back to life. Kind of in this same situation, we saw what happened there. So I kind of like that she has some reservations about let's think about this for a minute, and it kind of gives her something to do, because she doesn't really do too much after this point in the movie. She's some good action sequences, but she doesn't really, her arc kind of doesn't really go anywhere too much.
Stalls out. They kind of, Steppenwolf is smartly kind of playing off of what happened at the Themyscira. And that's kind of it for her. She's kind of mad because he killed her sisters. But after that, you're right. There's nowhere to go for her.
All right. So they got to bring back Superman. And the way they bring him back is they got to go on Superman's ship. They got to do the mother box in the water with the body, but they need a charge. So Flash has to do his thing where he like touches the box exactly the moment that it touches the water. But there's a slight difference here because we get a little bit of in the Snyder cut that Flash is able to go so fast, and we do see time start to rewind just a little bit, and then he touches that box. As opposed to the Whedon cut, we don't see anything kind of reverse at all. It's just all happening in real time or slow time, speed, force time, whatever you want to call it. So they are able to bring back Superman, and those fights are pretty much the same.
Pretty much the same.
I one of my favorite moments in the movie is that moment where Flash is running super fast, and then Superman's just like, and then Flash is like, what? Oh, fuck. Glad that wasn't cut at all from either film, because that's a great moment.
It's a good moment.
So they're both fighting Superman, and then there is a difference here because it looks like they're about to lose. It's Batman versus Superman. This is coming back. This is where you get a lot of those shots of that mustache being removed and everything. But there is a difference here because in the Snyder cut, Lois had just been showing up to this Superman memoriam, this area every day, and then she just decided like this is the last time she's going to do it because she's going to return back to the living and go back to work. So it's kind of random. In the Whedon cut, it was actually Batman who's like, I got it. We're going to bring out the big guns if this doesn't work right. So you think big guns and you're Batman versus Superman, you think maybe he has some kryptonite, maybe a little bit of that. But no, his big guns was Lois.
Right.
So that's a big difference right there. And, we've been shitting on this the whole time, but I kind of like that Batman's like, wait a minute, this might turn shitty. So let's bring in Lois.
It's consistent with Batman, the character, right? Like, look, we're probably going to lose this fight if it goes down like that. So let me see if this is going to work, right? I think that it is a smart choice. In the Snyder cut, I do find it interesting that they kind of use the Martian Manhunter and a little bit of deceptiveness to get Lois there, right? Like he pretends to be Superman's mother. What was it
Martha Kent? Yeah.
Martha Kent. And
how could you forget that name? Martha, come on.
Martha, why'd you say that? I don't know, man. Leave me alone.
But I don't know if he was doing that to get her to go to the location. I think he was just trying to get her to return to the living. I don't think he knew that Superman's going to come back. He's going to be mad.
That's fair.
I didn't get that.
Those two things aren't necessarily connected. Yeah. You're right. So having Batman actually use that to get her there versus her just being like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. Makes sense. It's Batman. He's smart. He planned for all this shit. So yeah, of course he'd plan to bring Lois there. It just it is more fitting of the character than just like, oh shit, hope Lois comes because we're fucked.
Yeah, to bring some balance to the podcast, I think you're right that the choice to have the Wonder Woman contention strong and the choice for Batman to be like, I'm bringing Lois, it's smart because it didn't, like, again, I assumed that somehow that was connected with the Martian Manhunter. But you're right, like there was no indication that he made that happen at all. So smart choice here by Whedon to have Batman be the initiator versus kind of like in the Snyder Cut where it's like, this is mostly Batman's fault. That all this stuff is going so poorly.
But that's just bringing back Superman. So like we said, Lois comes, Clark kind of snaps out of it, grows away with Lois, but we still got the mother box to worry about, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll start with the Snyder Cut. In the Snyder Cut, Dr. Stone saw the mother box land outside the facility. He takes the mother box himself. He goes back into Star Labs with it. While he's in the Star Labs with it, this is when Steppenwolf shows up, and he's like, uh-oh, I better do something. They've been working on some type of, I'll just say superheat ray or something in the lab, whatever. They're working on something, and he needs to use this machine on the mother box. And you think, obviously, he's trying to destroy it. I don't understand what's happening. And then, of course, Cyborg's like, shit, he's in the Star Lab. So he goes to kind of save his dad. And he realizes, wait, what are you doing, Dad? What are you doing? So his dad's like in there with that heater thing and shooting it at the mother box. And he just kind of sacrifices himself. Yeah. Not necessarily sure he needed to do that,
no, but
but he did anyway. basically what we have here is Cyborg's dad's dead, and we lose the third mother box all in one scene, as opposed to the Whedon cut where Steppenwolf just shows up, takes the box, and leaves.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
That's it. And Silas Stone's sacrifice is important. Again, we're talking about arcs. Like
it's important for Cyborg's arc, but I don't know if he had to do it.
No, he definitely didn't have to do it. I mean, even the way it's shot, it's like you don't have to be in the.
Yeah, you can be outside the box.
You can still press a button and the same thing's going to happen. But for dramatic effect, we melted his dad basically.
For our cyborg character to grow.
Right, and to have this idea like I couldn't save him. It's like, well, he could have saved himself.
Yeah.
Pointing out, but I think it's far more compelling than whoop, got a box.
Yes.
And now I'm going. And it also gives us sort of going into the next phase where they have to now. He's got all 3 boxes. He can make the Unity. Where is he? In the Whedon cut, it's just kind of like, well, where would you go that doesn't have internet, that doesn't blah blah blah? Here, right? So,
I think it was like, Victor, you're part of the mother box. Like, you could figure it out because you could feel it. So I think that's how it was done.
Is that? Yeah, I guess so.
I
guess so. I did enjoy, as kind of silly as the sacrifice was, like he superheated the mother box, so that like it's the hottest thing on the planet.
Right.
So that again, same thing. Those cyborgs able to kind of use thermonuclear, and we get another joke there because Batman has a satellite. We figure out where the location is, and we get a little bit more prep for that fight in the Snyderverse. Like they have like a plan, the tower. You got to do all this. There's a bunch of stuff you got to do versus the Whedon cut, which is like that's where he is. That's where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I mean, that is always part of it. He can feel it, stuff like that. So same net effect in terms of that's where he is. With the added bonus of we killed Cyborg's dad, who he's had contention with, and now we realize even though they have been fighting, still father and son, he's still upset that he couldn't save his father, and it changes his feeling about his father, their relationship, and affects his feeling about being a hero and realizing that there are times where you, even with all these powers, you can't save the day. Classic superhero trope works well here.
Yeah, it works well here. It'll come into the climax for sure. So that takes us to kind of the final conflict. I'll bring up something that we hadn't talked about that's only in the Whedon cut, and that is this Russian family that we keep following randomly. Yeah. So there's a Russian family that where Steppenwolf has decided to set up his base for Unity, and it's changing the whole region around them. And this Russian family is front and center for some reason, and we're just following them. They have more screen time, I think, than Cyborg. I mean, it's nuts. We're just following this Russian family the whole time, and it's like, we get it. There's danger, and you're staying there. And it's like, the moment you notice something like horrible is happening, you think they would leave, but they decide to stick it out, and they stay there the whole time. It's not until like the end when they're absolutely fucked that they're like, oh, maybe we should drive and leave. Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I get why you would do that. It's because like, oh, let's see how this is affecting normal people. And
but you would want to do that with more normal people, right? Like, you wouldn't want to focus on one disparate like Russian family, like. To like take the time that like their car broke down, so then the Flash has to push it. Like, it just no.
It's an addition, and it definitely did not help the Whedon cut. Let's say that.
Yeah. There's a couple moments in this final action sequence that don't help the Whedon cut, but it is what it is, right? Now that we're kind of at this like sort of final action sequence, right? Like, they failed in their mission to stop Steppenwolf from getting all 3 mother boxes. At this point in both films, Superman's out of the equation because he's like, doesn't remember being Superman, which makes him basically just like potentially a killing machine if they're not careful. Lois Lane helped stem that off for a while, but now they got to face Steppenwolf by themselves without Superman. I like that in the Snyder Cut. It's a more tactical decision. They're like, well, they're not expecting us to hit them on the front line, so there's like a Star Wars type invulnerability. We got to blow up this big tower like it's a womp rat. I do think that sequence is kind of badass. Them like trying to storm the this sort of like enclave works really well. Like you get those like superhero moments, Batman and like he's not in the Nightcrawler at this point, but he's in some Batmobile and like they're flying, and it's a really cool like very Justice League moment there that works well. I struggle a bit to remember the Whedon cut because I think what happens is they kind of get there. Like they just kind of get there, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember it too. It's
because I almost mixed it up with when they were interrogating Vic's dad
right
at the beginning of the not the beginning, but like towards the middle of the movie.
Kind of when
like,
Aquaman joined. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, nah, that's a different scene. And like I think that's what the problem is. Like those two scenes are effectively the same thing, right? Like they show up, they're like, well, we gotta fight this guy. I don't know. I just really like the setup in the Snyder cut a lot more, and you get some really, really epic action sequences in that like that added like we got to storm the castle scene. Worked well.
Yeah, it's a really cool action sequence. It's definitely a lot longer in the Snyder cut, and honestly, like more memorable at this point because like I'm trying to remember exactly what they did in the Whedon cut. It's like there's a lot of Flash pizzazz too. I guess it just feels more earned in the Snyder cut. So I'm able to like invest in it more and like, more willing to follow what every character is doing as opposed to the Whedon cut where it's just like, all right, you're cool, Aquaman. That's really cool. Good for you.
Yeah. And I think it's established before they show up that like, they're going to have to use Cyborg in like this way to like stop this mother box. So like this is added bonus of having like the Flash trying to generate enough speed, which adds another layer of a problem when there's defenses that try to stop the Flash and stuff like that. So like the scope of the scene is bigger too.
Yes.
In the Snyder cut.
Yeah, and like they have to kind of like work together because what the setup is like Flash is like getting enough of a charge because you can't just get into separate the mother boxes because they're just like pure power. So Flash has to like get the super speed in order to charge Cyborg, I guess, so he can get inside Unity and separate the three mother boxes. Yep. Should have mentioned this before too. When they were bringing Superman back, before Cyborg was going to tell Flash to kind of come and like supercharge the mother box, he gets a vision of the future, which isn't in the Whedon cut, and it's another dark future. We see Wonder Woman just being burned, kind of a funeral pyre in Themyscira, and then we see Apocalypse in Atlantis just killing Atlanteans, and he does his cool Omega Beam. It was just, I don't know, I'm just a dork. I love seeing the Omega Beam and just in live action. I thought that was really cool. So we just get this sequence of the dark future, which we'd seen in Batman v Superman before. So we're getting a little bit more of it now, but now Victor is the one who's seeing it instead of Batman. The dark overtones are just happening like constantly throughout this movie, setting up future films that we'll probably never get to see.
Never gonna happen.
Anyway, so Flash is outside. He's like doing the supercharged thing, and like you said, there's aliens. These parademons are shooting at him, and he gets shot like pretty fucking bad. Like this poor kid is just like, oh, it's all right. Just got the wind knocked out of me, and you see him. He's like got this huge fucking gash on the side, and it's pretty intense. And then Victor's like, all right, we gotta do this. Where are you, Barry? Barry, we gotta do this. We gotta put this all together. And then it's like, click. Oh shit! And then so Unity fucking happens. Darkseid's like peeking in through the window. He's like, "Yes, we did it, bitch." Actually, man, I'm jumping too far ahead. Yeah, we gotta bring in Superman first, right?
Yeah, a bit. So like, while the Flash is running, I think the Superman thing happens. Like he shows up before even Barry gets shot.
Yeah.
Like when Barry gets shot and he's about to get kind of finished off, Batman sniper shots this parademon, which is like, thanks Batman, good contribution, man. Not a lot that Batman could do in this parademon fight. Like he's feeling that kind of Captain America role of like, there's two guys that need to get punched right now. But right now, like they're kind of getting their asses whooped by Steppenwolf before. And Cyborg's trying to like separate the mother box to do his thing, and Superman just shows up, and we got like the dark,
Right.
the dark armor Superman coming in, and he's laying down the heat, right? Like it's really effective because one, we get Superman back, he's able to like handle Steppenwolf in a way that the rest of them aren't, but it hasn't turned the tide so much because ultimately the problem isn't can we beat Steppenwolf? The problem is the mother boxes are
exactly.
So like it's dope because we get Superman back. He's kicking some ass, but it does not ultimately solve the problem, and it works really well here. So, like I said, Batman kind of sneaks up on a Harrigan and shoots and saves the Flash. And like you mentioned in that action sequence, the deed was done. The unity was combined. It was all over. And then the Flash, again, a character that we introduced very cleanly at the beginning of the movie. We've shown his powers throughout. We showed a little bit of that speed reversing time. He's like, I gotta break the rules.
You gotta do it, Barry. You gotta go fast as the speed of light, Barry. You gotta break your one rule.
Yeah. It's fun. It's cool, man. Like you start seeing things reverse.
Sick, dude.
It's a great scene.
This is my favorite scene in the whole fucking movie.
It is.
Right here. Barry is just like, he's got shot. He's got to do the Speed Force thing to slow things down because Unity is destroying the Earth. You're just seeing like nothingness because the Earth is getting destroyed. So he's like, all right, gotta do it. So he starts running, and he's running so fast. Like, yeah, you do see like the destruction getting reversed. You see ground start to create where his feet like hit the ground. It's just so fucking cool. The music is epic. He's like worried. He's like talking to his dad. He's like, Dad, I just want you to know your kid was one of the best. And he's like just running, and the music is just. Oh, it's like so fucking good. It's one of my favorite moments, like in comics. It's like I think it's up there with like Wonder Woman when she's in No Man's Land in her movie, just like blocking bullets. Like it's one of those like I was just like getting so pumped seeing the Flash just like go back in time because like we got a little taste of what he can do, and he's been this kind of joke character, and now he's got to fucking step up with the big boys and like just save everybody, and he's able to do it in like such a spectacular fashion, and just I love this moment in the movie.
Yeah. And set up for so many potential Flash moments. Like you said, that sequence that you're referencing in the Wonder Woman movie, that hyped me up. Like going out there in No Man's Land, going nuts, and you wish the third act didn't happen. But right there, I was like, yo, this movie kicks ass. And then it stopped kicking ass for like the last 15 minutes. But we pretend like that didn't happen. No, this scene is so good, dude. Like it's really good. I would say there's two other scenes that I kind of put up there. I think that the mascara scene where they're like knocking the mother box here and forth, like people picking up like it's a football and stuff like that. I thought that scene was badass. I thought that the new guys, the old god scene was dope with the lanterns and Dark Side. But like this one is another level, right? Because like we got the whole team assembled. This is it. The world is collapsing, and Barry, the least likely person, like you mentioned.
Exactly.
Like, fuck it, man, I got to do it. And again, the Flash and all the crazy time travel, Speed Force, and random things that they do with that character, and the dead Flashes that come back, the live Flashes, and the old Flash. Like, like it's a fun character. Ezra Miller, just again, he's giving me the same way that like Spider-Man, like the way that kid is able to emote and like I'm cold, Tony Stark. Like Ezra Miller has that energy and that vibe, and like him being like the thing that reverses time and gets everything back into place. Just a clean, good scene. You're right. It's probably the best scene in the whole movie, which makes a lot of sense because it's the climactic kind of action ending, and it worked so well.
It's one of those earned moments. It's like you earned this movie. You'd been building up to this point. You showed us like glimpse and flashes, pun intended, of Flash. So like to just have it culminate into that one moment. It was just like it was like the perfect like climax for Flash, his character. It was so good. It just made me like fucking a Flash fan right there. I was like, yeah, this guy's awesome, man. Like it's like the jokes, people you take him or leave them, but like to have him like kind of redeem himself and just save everybody. It was just so fucking cool.
He's Deadpool like in that way. Like yes, he's constantly joking and again, no matter what version of Barry Allen you get, he's pretty juvenile in terms of like the way he talks, but like he's a hero, right?
Mhm.
Like that is the character. The way they pull that off, speeding it up, having him reverse the mother box, having the portable dark side, like what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I think Superman punches him or something like that. Somebody punches Steppenwolf, maybe Aquaman, and have Wonder Woman come up, chop his fucking head off, have the head go through the portal, fall at Darkseid's feet. Darkseid, stop putting that. It's like, you suck. I knew you couldn't do it.
We were right there. How did you fuck this up?
Sucks. It's so good. It's so appropriate for a Justice League movie. How is this my first time seeing this? Absurd, dude. Not saying that like the Snyder cut would have saved that franchise. I think the whole thing was off the rails already at that point. But like, that's such a good ending. And it's not even the ending.
It's not. We got ways to go before we can finish
we got
this
some
up.
time. But like, I just remember watching the Whedon cut, and it's like, once Superman shows up, that's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
Superman, I'm the reason that this isn't working right now, and I just MacGuffin my way into the movie. I kicked this guy's ass, and he's making stupid quips.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, Whedon's okay with this stuff. It's like, truth. How about some justice? It's like, go fuck yourself, man.
He's like, glad you're not dead. I wish I was, because like it's like, come on, man. We don't need these stupid little jokes.
Because Steppenwolf is not epic enough with the scenes that we saw. So when Superman shows up, it makes everyone else lame, right? Like Aquaman, Superman, Aquaman, Batman, Cyborg, and the Flash are whack. Superman is the only one with great powers. The rest of them are frivolous. It's like, dude, that's not the point, right? Like, even with Superman, they're gonna lose that battle.
Yeah.
In the Snyder cut.
Yeah.
So like you said, Barry ultimately saved the day through a little bit of time travel. It's awesome.
Yeah, because it's important. Like, it's not just Superman. Because you need Barry to do the thing, but you also need something you kind of went over was Cyborg.
Yes.
Essential. So let's get into Cyborg, what he has to do. So once Barry touches Cyborg, then he's in the mother box, and then every time Cyborg's like in this, like he's like actually walking around, he's always like his human form. And then he stumbles upon his mom and dad. It's the mother box kind of tempting him. It was like, you could have this again. We could be a family again, right? And then like the camera kind of just pans around behind them, and then it's no longer Victor. Now it's just he's fully Cyborg. And he's like, no, like, this is who I am. I'm not going to do that. I've accepted what has happened, and I'm moving on, and I'm going to do the right thing. And he says no to that life, and he just says he has to be a hero, and he's able to separate the mother boxes. Yep. It's his arc.
Is that arc?
It's an arc. Hey, look at that.
Holy shit. Start to finish. Yeah, it's cool because like when he's tempted, and they all know that is one of the dangers. We all know that he's potentially, because he is of the mother box, he's an agent of it in some way, that he can go in there and get tempted. It knows all of his weaknesses. I believe Wonder Woman does get that added great line of being like, it's going to tempt you. We get to see that temptation. We get to see him overcome it. We get to see him separate the mother box. I mean, come on, man. And not only that, while he's separating the mother box, and Superman gets the help too. Right. So Superman, I'm going to need you to jump in here, buddy, because even with everything going in our favor, we still need that extra little Superman push, man. I don't know. I just like it so much more.
Yeah. It's cleaner. It's so much cleaner.
So much cleaner.
More balanced.
And honestly, although they're using like the OG Superman outfit in the Whedon cut, I like this the dark suit. Just it fits the tone of the film. I like it.
It's an homage to when Superman came back in the comics. He came back in a black and silver emblem, and that's pretty much what he does here. So
clean.
Works.
Clean. Look, and we're hitting the things that like Marvel does well, which is, I know you guys like a little bit of that Easter eggs and that little fan lore. Here's, like you said, here's the outfit. Instead of CGI mustache, here's the outfit. It's such a good ending action sequence. I can't say enough about it. Do I need 4 hours to get there? Maybe not. But hey, it wasn't like they played with our time, right? Like, honestly, most of the glut would probably be action sequences that you could have sped up. right? Like I don't look at a lot of the moments in the film and say, this is just like indulgent fact that we don't need on the movie. Like, it actually felt appropriate, which is hard to say for a 4-hour superhero movie. I didn't think that I would say that. And yet here we are talking about this awesome ending action sequence.
I think it could have been cut. I was watching the first time I was watching it. I was like, there could be some cuts. We don't need to know how T's made. We don't need to know that.
The front half was like, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely drags in the beginning. The first half. I feel like there's a Snyder cut. Yeah, there's gonna be another version coming out that just cuts a few things to make it a little
Snyder theater cut.
Yeah. So
I don't think that we need to revisit this anymore.
No.
We've done it. Move on. Hopefully, DC can figure out what they want to do with their future. Hopefully, I know how I would reboot the franchise. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, sure. That'll be fun at the end. All right. So pretty much after Unity is prevented, we pretty much get our endings. A lot of the stuff that happens in the Whedon cut, we do see in the ending for the Snyder cut. I'm trying to think if there's anything that really stood out that was like, oh wow, look at that.
It's the classic superhero punchies. You get out there.
Except they're doing the voiceover to what Dr. Stone is saying to his son, to Victor. The final message that Victor destroyed before this inspiring speech that he came up with is being played as we kind of see all the other superheroes kind of returning to their own worlds separately.
Right.
So I guess that's a major difference because, as we mentioned, Dr. Stone is dead in the Snyder Cut, but he's still very much alive in the Whedon Cut, like helping Cyborg get a circular red laser center thing. I don't know. Yeah, so he's there. He's alive in that cut.
Sure, he is. He said it. He's alive.
But I think I think we're going here now. I think the biggest difference is kind of this epilogue.
Yeah,
that was actually new footage. This is the new stuff that was filmed.
Okay, this is new footage.
Yeah.
Just to put a pin in this this moment. So we're about 3.5 hours into the movie.
Yeah,
and you could have ended there.
Mm-hmm.
So like 3.5 hours, a little long. If you lost another half an hour off of that, you could have potentially put that in the theaters. I mean, Endgame is what 220, 230, something like that. So we're right there, right?
Yeah.
But the epilogue I thought was interesting.
It's interesting. Well, it lets you see the potential of what Zack Snyder had envisioned for future installments of this franchise. Mm-hmm. So you're pretty much in that apocalyptic world that we had seen before in Batman v Superman. They're just hiding, and all these parademons go by, and then Batman comes out. You see Cyborg, Flash, Mira, and then there's also some villains there. We got Deathstroke, and then of course the biggest one, we got the Joker. The first time we got Ben Affleck's Batman meeting Jared Leto's Joker, something that I never thought I would see happen. And here it is.
Yeah.
A much less tatted up version. He's not so inked up on his face. And I don't know if he still has that weird grill, but his teeth do look weird here, but they're not like obnoxiously inappropriate.
Yeah, I think that the way that this is shot, like, it still works within the universe, right? Like that things can change. So like if you look at like their outfits, for instance, like their apocalyptic outfits, like
Mad Max.
The Flash has like metal armor type stuff, So like they play with the designs a bit in a kind of cool, clean way. Let me tell you, at this point, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was 3.5 hours in the movie. I was watching it. I don't know if I was experiencing it, but I was watching it, and from what I gathered, this was Batman's fault. That's what I gathered. That he allowed
Lois to die.
Yes. And if you've ever read DC Comics, anytime we've allowed Lois to die, not end well. There's a pretty cool fighting game franchise called Injustice. It's like a DC Mortal Kombat kind of fighting game. And that is the premise that I believe the Joker, he uses some kind of Joker gas, tricks Superman into thinking that he's killing Lex Luthor or something like that, but he's killing Lois Lane. And that starts this whole crazy interdimensional fight because Superman's pissed. So don't piss off Superman is the point in any universe that you're in.
I'm just going off the top of my head. I had heard that like what the story was is like Lois was under attack or something, and Batman could have saved her, but he hesitated or something. He messed up a little bit, so then she dies. And then like Darkseid uses the anti-life equation to control Superman, so it's not necessarily Superman. He's a little bit under control from the anti-life equation. So that would have been kind of the next movie, kind of a Batman v Superman 2-ish kind of a thing. And then like the whole thing after that was what was it? We're in this apocalyptic world, and then I think Barry eventually has to like go back in time because he went back too early in Batman v Superman, so he has to go back a little bit later, and then Batman's ultimately going to sacrifice himself and die, and everything will be kind of restored.
This is well-worn territory, right? It's like kind of like what we see with Avengers, right? Like Endgame. It's like, okay, we go back, we solve the problem, and someone gets sacrificed. It's like, fuck, that's $1 million actor right there, No, I mean that would have been okay. I just find it difficult to believe they would have got that far. As much as we've railed on the Whedon cut, I don't think that was the problem with this franchise. Right? Like, was it great? Was the Snyder cut got better reception? Maybe. I think people still would have been harping on the fact that like you've gone this gritty, dark route, and that just was not the tone that was working at the time. So I don't know. It was interesting to see, and I thought that like that added footage really put a nice bow in it. Like you said, it was good foreshadowing for what could have been. But like, look, when you had a $140 million movie with $167 million box office, it wasn't going to be another movie, man. The fact that this exists is still like
it's pretty impressive.
I can't believe that we could even witness whatever that was, right? Like it's just so unlikely to go back and revisit something so expensive. As much as like streaming services or like kind of our new future, I mean, it opens up opportunities like this because this would never happen in theaters. It was just too much liability.
Yeah. So like we get that kind of epilogue in the future, just Batman, Joker kind of going back and forth, not necessarily saying anything important. Yeah, we talk about like the death of the Boy Wonder, the death of Harley. I will fucking kill you. Like Batman dropping an F-bomb, so it's a little teaser, not much going on there, but then Bruce wakes up. And Bruce wakes up, and then we think, oh, is Superman going to come talk to him? No, it's a character we briefly talked about. The Martian Manhunter is here. Yep. So he's there, and he's a prominent member of the Justice League, and he's finally being introduced to a member of the Justice League. This was also, I think, this was also shot later, or this is one new footage also shot because Ben looks a little bit thinner. But yeah, you just get a little bit of introduction to Martian Manhunter, and he does warn that like this isn't over. Like Darkseid will come back for the anti-life equation. So again, setting up future films and everything. But if you're a fan of Martian Manhunter, hey, it's Martian Manhunter. There you go.
I like the Martian Manhunter. I think he's a great character. John, super powerful, but has certain weaknesses that kind of keep him out of like the Superman tier. I mean, everyone does basically. Even Superman is kept out of Superman tier with Kryptonite, right? But Martian Manhunter is a very strong character, and the shape-shifting element, kind of brings it back to like we were talking about X-Men. It's like some of the Mystique stuff. Yeah, he's a great character that. Honestly, probably should have been in this movie more, but whatever. Yeah.
I mean, he got enough already. We brought back Superman, and we had to stop Steppenwolf, so that's a lot. We don't have to.
Yeah. Right, you don't have to pile on.
Yeah, but it's a good setup for future films for sure.
Yeah, I think the design works well with what they got.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense in the universe.
Yeah, because his typical thing is it's kind of
green.
It's his skin mostly, and then it's kind of just has underwear and then like a couple of like suspenders or something. So they gave him more of like a full suit here, which I think works. Yeah, we're not going to do the underwear thing. I don't think ever again in superhero films.
I don't think so. Also, we didn't talk about this that much, but in that old god sort of action sequence against Darkseid. A little lantern action.
A little bit of lantern. We did get that a little bit in the Whedon cut, but you don't see as much. You get to see the lantern's hand cut off in the Snyder cut. A little more bloody. The Snyder cut for sure. A lot more blood. I'm just thinking about like when Steppenwolf gets his head cut off, you can actually see the blood on Diana's sword. So they're leaning into that R rating pretty heavily.
Yeah. Again, as a comic book nerd, I like that with the hand cut off, the ring went somewhere, right?
Yeah,
to
yeah.
The next,
Darkseid was gonna. He's like, let me get that, and then he got
Yeah.
shot.
But this is a type of, world building, clean. We could stack this into another movie. This is the type of stuff that like DC, I think, struggled with. That again, a lot of this was already shot. I don't know how it would have been sequenced, right?
Yeah.
In theaters, clean, and you could have gone some places with it. But I think the financials really, like, I do keep going back to that because I'm sure the internet nerds will talk about this forever. But like the budgetary restrictions on doing something like this again were, I just don't see the Snyder cut in theaters making more than like 200 million, which means are we going to do this again? Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably
I mean,
not.
it's crazy the amount of money they spent. Like, cause like first they spent on what they shot, and then they did all of the Joss Whedon reshoots, and then that includes Henry Cavill's expensive mustache, and then they had to spend more money just to finish the Snyder cut. So it's like they spent millions on like these two different versions. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're being honest with marketing and everything like that, this is a $500 million movie. Probably didn't clear $500 million, but like, all right, man, like, I know it's the time of streaming and superhero movies, but like, I guess there is some artistry in seeing something like this go full circle. I mean, it's one of those internet mythology stories that, hey, we got to experience it, my friend.
Yeah, so that's pretty much how the movies end. Anything else we want to?
No, I think that you mentioned some other, like, we don't have to spend too much time on this, but like some slightly notable characters. So Iris was a good one that you brought up earlier.
Yeah. There's another one is the lab assistant to Dr. Stone, Ryan Choi, who I didn't know this, but thank God for the internet. He's a version of the Atom.
Cool.
He becomes the director of Star Lab after Dr. Stone dies. So, they tease a little bit of the Atom, which is pretty cool.
That's good.
That's deep cuts. I didn't pick up on that. I knew Ray Palmer. I didn't know Ryan Choi.
When I watch stuff like this, it makes you wonder what could have been, because like one of my biggest fears is that when Moon Knight comes out, it's going to be the best Batman movie we've seen in like 10 years. I'm nervous about stuff like that. Like, I think that like just like the Democratic and the Republican Party, it's good when there's balance in these two universes, and I really do hope that like DC finds its footing in some way. But like this felt like flawed but interesting approach to maybe writing the ship.
I mean, I know there's plenty things to talk about. I just want to touch on the music really quickly. Yeah. So, like we said, Danny Elfman did the score for the Whedon cut. Danny Elfman, his early stuff is definitely more well known, I guess, than his later stuff. But it's just cool because you did hear bits of the Batman theme that he did with the Tim Burton films. Like, I definitely heard a little bit of the dun dun dun. I was like, oh, that's sprinkled out in there. It's not that prominent, but if you're listening for it, you could definitely hear it. So that's cool. But other than that, the music's pretty by the books. I guess in the Whedon cut, it's not really that memorable or impactful. I think.
Which again makes sense because, like you mentioned, Whedon being tasked to do this job was to do it by the books, right? Because like Marvel did that very well, right? Like there was some swings and some choices that were kind of risky in the Marvel movies, but overall, if I had to describe that franchise, they played it really safe, very effectively. Like they did safe as good as you can do safe, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And they were always going to get on base, right? Like sometimes they hit home runs, but like they're at least going to get a single or a double pretty much every time the movie comes out. It's like you could take Ant-Man and the Wasp and outpace Superman. Like that's crazy, right? Like that shouldn't happen. But by the books isn't that bad. It's generic, right?
Yeah. And then you got Tom Hokenborg's soundtrack for the Whedon cut, for the Snyder cut, and I don't know, like this. It felt like amazing the music. Going back to that Flash scene, that works so well just because of that score that's playing underneath it. It was incredible. Like it just felt so epic and heroic. It was incredible. It was great decisions he did there. Great songs he wrote. What a solid soundtrack. think it's definitely the superior soundtrack between the two. I like hearing the old Batman theme and what Elfman did, but like, man, this soundtrack was amazing.
And that's the thing, right? Like when I was going back and watching the action sequences, I was like, is it because they're shorter, or is it because like that punch, right, that you get from the soundtrack? I think it's a combination of both. But, like, the Whedon cut feels like you mentioned, which safe isn't always bad, so don't get me wrong here, but like felt safe and felt a little flat, right? And like, go watch any like Avengers movie. It's like, you know, you could basically show a sequence from any one of those films as like the final action sequence. It is basically the same thing between all of them. Now there's plenty of, like I mentioned, Easter eggs and fun things for comic nerds, but like the camera's gonna circle around. You're gonna see punchies. You're gonna see aliens, and like we're gonna do the same thing with some epic climax, right? But like this felt kind of raw and different, and I appreciate that soundtrack because it really, you're right, it made you feel like, okay, Barry Allen. It was a great score.
It was a great score. And like not too many pop songs. There was a couple. There was one Flash first did his powers at the puppy shop to save Iris. Like you heard a song there, but like nothing like not too much in the forefront. Like I didn't really hear like the Whedon cut. Like you had Icky Thumb that came out of nowhere, and it's just to show how badass Aquaman is.
Whiskey.
Drink whiskey and listen to Icky Thumb. And then, you know, like we said, you had the Leonard Cohen cover in the opening. And then Gary Clark Jr. even did like a version of Come Together that you hear in the credits. Like I remember that playing pretty heavy in the trailers. So you don't have any of that in the Snyder cut, and I'm perfectly fine with that, all that stuff, you know.
In the credits, we get a Hallelujah cover.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, no, you got to be deep in it. At 4 hours in, I know.
I didn't listen to all the music.
But I remember listening to it. It kind of sounded like Jennifer Hudson, but it was probably somebody else. And Pre was like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, look, they did the thing. You got to do Hallelujah."
Well, he'd been putting Hallelujah in like those early teasers of the Snyder cut, so I'm not surprised. I mean, he also put that in Watchmen too, so it's like he's got to put some Leonard Cohen somewhere in his movie.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a beautiful song. It's done probably too much, but it works. So no, I thought the score really helped sell a lot of action. It made you not think about how long you've been watching the scene. So big improvement.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, we don't want this turned into the.
We don't want this to turn longer than the Snyder cut.
Is this the Buick or the Parker cut?
All right, I think we're there then.
Then the question we have to ask ourselves is: one, should the Whedon original version have existed given what was happening in Zack Snyder's life at the time? Studio notes and all that stuff. And then ultimately, it's a two-tier question, really. It's not like our normal question. Ultimately, does the Snyderverse, should it exist?
Right.
And I think we should add an amendment to that question as well. Should it exist at the length that we got? So the Whedon cut. I'm not happy that it exists. I think it's a necessary evil. Clearly, the studio is going to step in. I think that the Snyder cut, now that we've seen, again, hindsight, what the Avengers were able to do in-game and how dark that was able to get, while still clinging to some of the Marvel, like, you know, that very sanitized superhero film. I think given that what we're able to see with Thanos and stuff like that, that it's important that we got to ultimately see the Snyder cut. So I'm not gonna ding the Whedon cut for timing, right? Like, they were trying to fix a problem, which is that this DC stuff is getting too dark, and Marvel is not doing that and succeeding spectacularly. So they're like, we got to try something to get there. And they missed the mark. Plain and simple. I don't blame Zack Snyder for that. I don't blame Josh Whedon for that, right? Like, this is purely a studio fuck up.
Yep.
Plain and simple. You cannot ask a director to come in with 90% of a movie shot, to come in, shoot 10% of it, and then say, that guy fucked this up. That's it. Look, there's plenty of things that apparently Josh Whedon may be bad. The quips don't work, and that is his fault. But if he had made a movie that was supposed to be like that, I could see Josh Whedon having Aquaman and like Batman eating a tuna melt, like at a diner, and like I could see it working. But that's not the framework that he had. You didn't have Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. You didn't have Mark Ruffalo's the Hulk. You got what you got. You got this like the last movie was grandma's pee in a jar at a Senate hearing. Like there were a lot of missteps in the DC universe way before that. So I don't like the Whedon cut, and it's somebody's fault, but I'm going to blame the studio. The Snyder cut, I'm glad that I got to see it because this feels like what the director's vision was. For what the goal is, it's still a mess. Like I appreciate the movie. I enjoyed it. It certainly would not have fit the need of revitalizing the franchise, but it is a more cohesive, clean, fun movie. I don't think the kids are going to love it, but I think the old school comic nerds like us are going to be like, okay, Dark Side. Yeah, we chopped off some heads. I thought that was cool. We fleshed out some characters. I thought that was cool. But it was a doomed project all around. I don't think that there's anything that they could have done because Snyder made his decision about the universe and its grittiness well before this movie came out. DC embraced it, so that was what they had. And then they tried to run from it when Marvel got all, Captain Clean. And this is what you get. You get a jumbled fucking mess. But the Snyder Cut is good. It's not a masterpiece. It's like a 7 out of 10 movie at best. I'm glad I watched it, but yeah, there's a lot of problems in DC. A lot of problems. But yeah, honestly, neither of them should really exist. But if one should exist, the Snyder Cut was a cohesive vision. So I appreciate that.
I think he defended Joss Whedon's kind of his situation. He was like kind of forced upon him. Like if he was able to start from scratch, I'm sure he could have created something much better than what he was, which we eventually got. So yeah, I am going to blame the studio along with you. But I did hate like all those little stupid quips and jokes. They were definitely the parts of the film that I was so happy to see. Like, okay, that was Joss Whedon. Okay, that was Joss Whedon. Like making Batman crack a joke. Oh yeah, I'm bleeding now. It's like, oh, you're Batman. Come on, we don't need that from you, man. So like, the Whedon cut's been shit on like to so many times. So I don't think there's really anything I need to add there. When talking about the Snyder cut, though, again, it's better. It's definitely better. Does it need to be 4 hours? Absolutely not. I don't know about you. I definitely didn't watch it in one sitting.
No.
First time I watched it, it took me a week to get through that shit because it drags. It drags a lot. Yeah, a lot of it's world building and a lot of it's stuff that kind of like, yeah, that's already in the other Justice League. So I kind of already remember that. So I feel like I'm just kind of watching it again. But it does drag. And I know you said it's fun. It does have fun moments, but a lot of the movie's joyless too at the same time. So you're just like, man, this is kind of a bummer. Yeah, I get it. Let's make a dark superhero movie, but like, man, it's like, give me some joy. Like, give me some, like I love that Flash moment. Like, give me more of that, and we won't have a problem. Like I said, it is my favorite moment in the movie, but 4 hours ain't justifying one moment in a movie. So yeah, it's definitely a better film. I do think there is a 3-hour cut out there, and there probably will be one day. We don't have to review it. I am happy we did get to see Zack Snyder's vision. I'm not necessarily 100% on board with that vision, but at least we got to see it play out, and it's not what we thought it was. So I'm glad for that. Yeah, the Whedon cut, big mistake. I don't know what they were thinking in the studio, but obviously that version shouldn't exist. If you're gonna have to watch one, you should just watch the Snyder cut. But again, be warned, it does drag. It is 4 hours, and it did not have to be 4 hours.
Yeah, I could have got it in like 2 sittings, but it ended up being about 3. And yeah, I really actually don't know the universe where I watched that movie in 1 sitting.
I don't know either. Who has 4 hours, man? It's
not
so
not for this. Not for this.
No.
Because I'm a DC fan, dude. I'm a huge
Me
fan
too.
of their stuff. And like, I remember watching the Whedon cut films, and not just that. Like when I watched Dawn of Justice, like Batman vs Superman. Like I sat there and I was like, I'm okay with this product enough, but like kids aren't gonna. I can't take a kid to go see this stuff. You know
No,
what
definitely
I mean?
not.
Like,
No, not at
like
all.
this, what are you guys doing, right? And it's like I'm cool with Killing Joke level like dark stuff, but it's like guys, you're making general audience film to try to maximize profit. Like I hate that artistry is there, but like that's where we are, right? You're making a movie, you have to maximize profit. What you put out will not do that, so suffer. And eventually, like weird internet stuff makes things like the Snyder Cut happen. But like, this movie wasn't hyped up because it's a good movie. It was hyped up because like, how the fuck did this happen, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm glad I saw it, but yeah, like we already talked about, they're both rough, but I do like the Snyder Cut more. And
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason to watch the Whedon cut anymore at this point, unless you're just curious, like what exactly is different. It's so bad. Like this is how I did it. I watched first the Snyder cut because I had seen Justice League, the Whedon cut years ago in theaters, and then I went to watch the Whedon cut, and then that compared to the Snyder cut, I mean, it makes it look like Citizen Kane watching the Whedon cut. It is so bad compared to the Snyder cut. But the Snyder cut, like by itself, if you didn't have that comparison, it's passable.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like 7 out of 10 at best. That's being like
that's generous. I give it a hard 6.
Yeah, it's right in that hard 6 territory. And what I worry about, this is kind of what I was alluding to before, is that DC's not going to be able to dig themselves out of this hole. How I would approach this, because I think Marvel has once again, like, look, you want to talk comics and animation, I think DC's kind of kicks ass, right? You want to talk about like movies, clearly Marvel's winning the day. And if I had to try to fix all of this mess, I would go Guardians of the Galaxy style and go obscure. I would go Justice League Dark, build up like a new Constantine, you know what I mean? Throw like a Keanu Reeves as a cameo somewhere in that movie, not as Constantine, but it's like some, I don't know.
Yeah.
And have like a kind of dark but kind of fun, gritty character base. At some point in that film, introduce like a mainline person like the Flash, which I think you could clean up better than everyone else. He doesn't have a mainline movie by himself yet, right? Build out the Flash. Again, intro another one of these characters, maybe Gal Gadot, and boost up some other Justice League character and try to repair it that way. But like right now, I don't know how they fix this.
No, I think they're just moving on. They're just doing the solo movies, and they're just kind of we'll try to make a good movie every now and then. Hopefully, you come see it.
Yeah.
I think that's their plan at this point, because them trying to play catch up with Marvel was a big mistake. Yeah, Marvel had a plan. You didn't. You were just trying to copy success, and you failed miserably.
This is so apparent to anyone watching, because, like I said, I was probably reading like Maxim magazine back in like 2005 or 6, but it was like, this is the plan for the Marvel universe. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Perfect. Almost flawless execution.
Yeah.
To the point now, you could take the victory lap. Scarlet Witch, WandaVision. What? You're gonna start pulling out like obscure characters, and that's why I mentioned you got someone like Moon Knight, which is basically a Batman ripoff. That's probably gonna become not as popular as Batman. That's impossible, but like he's gonna get pretty fucking popular, and because Oscar Isaac, and I'm like, God damn it, can we not get outflanked by Marvel on the Batman front? Because that's the one thing DC has done well consistently. Batman vs. Robin notwithstanding. I'm just a huge fan, and I hate to see them fail.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be cool. I kind of like that idea. Like, let's get some more obscure characters. I'm thinking, like, make a Swamp Thing movie. Make a good fucking Swamp Thing.
Lit, man.
That'd be
who's the guy? The Question or something like that? The little mystery dude? Like, you start small. There are characters, like I said, Justice League Dark works for me because, like, Zathora, right? Like, you get some of that girl boss energy going, a little magic, fuck around with that WandaVision stuff a little bit. Like, because DC does television well as well.
Yeah.
But, like, how many CW shows are we going to build a franchise on? Like,
right, exactly.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So that's from the nerd corner.
Well said. Well said. All right. Well, that's what we thought about Justice League. What you guys think? Did you agree with us? Did you disagree with us? Did we miss anything? Definitely let us know in the comments. All right. Well, it's time to figure out what we're doing next. I picked Justice League. What do you got for us, Reggie?
Well, I'm not that creative, and I know we changed our minds, so I'm rechanging it. We're going to watch The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Where'd you come up with that idea?
I don't know, it just came in me in a dream.
Fantastic. The Day the Earth Stood Still. Speaking of Keanu, Constantine, there we go. All right, so our next episode, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Well, thanks again for listening. If you're on YouTube, definitely leave us a comment. If you're on iTunes, if you can give us that 5 stars and a nice comment, that would definitely help us grow. Social media stuff, Reggie?
Social media, you can find me at RP Comedy on Twitter and Instagram. But definitely check us out at Retro versus Remake on Twitter and Instagram. This was a really fun episode. We're going to experiment with some different things. I think we're coming up on our 50th episode, so we may even do like a little recap type of deal, you know, figure out what we like, what we didn't like over the past many episodes that we've done. So this is a fun show. I'm looking forward to doing more of it.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I like this one's, oh my God. Hey, shut up. I like doing this. Maybe there's like other director's cut out there that are like incredibly different from the theatrical cut. That could be like a little interesting thing to revisit. But yeah, this is really fun. And yeah, we got episode 50 coming up. So we got some special things lined up for future episodes.
Totally. Well, if you ever wanted to do something like this, and we'll let the audience force us to do this. I know he's been canceled more or less, but Mel Gibson did a movie called Payback back in the day, where the director's cut is so different than what came out in theaters that like it might as well be a remake. It's supposed to kind of play like a film noir, sort of modernized. It is a mess. It reads more comedic in the theatrical cut than what it's supposed to, and you know, if enough people say it, maybe we'll do it down the line.
All right. We'll check out. We'll see if we'll visit Payback or give Payback a visit.
You're going to have to make us do that.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm Dan Bulick.
I'm Reggie Parker.
And this has been another episode of Retro versus Remake.
Snyder Cut.
Snyder Cut.